Thank you for joining us on Let the Healing Begin podcast. I'm your host, Asia, and today we have Alan Cox. How are you, Alan?
I'm really, really good, thank you. How are you? Really
I'm
pleased
good,
to be
thank
here.
you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. So, how's everything going? How's your day been going so far?
Yeah, pretty good. It's only 9 o'clock here in New Zealand, so it's just starting here for me, really.
And that's crazy. We are officially. Well, I'm on Eastern Standard Time, here in the U.S. So it's a little after 5 here.
Wow. So I have this standard dad joke that I tell to all people like you, and that is that we're actually one day ahead of you. So if you'd like me to let you know what your lotto numbers will be, just give me a shout.
Do they usually roll out the same as the U.S. and over there?
The lotto?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do, but obviously the numbers, the winnings aren't quite as glamorous as what you might get over there.
Wow.
We've only got a population of, I don't know, 4 point something million.
Wow. So you're born and raised over there?
No, I'm actually originally from the UK. I was born in London, and I migrated to New Zealand literally just before the millennium, so late 1999. So I've been here for 23 years now, it's I feel really blessed, really, to have discovered this place. I mean, apart from some minor little things like earthquakes and mosque shootings, it's generally been a really safe, wonderful place to bring up children. So I can't moan.
That's good. I've never experienced an earthquake. I know that's got to be something.
No, yeah. It's a funny thing, really, because on the one hand, it's not something I would, put on anybody's bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when you look back and you think, do I wish it had never happened? There's so much good that's come out of it. Although it, nearly killed me, quite literally. I think I've grown enormously as a person as well. Yeah. I wouldn't put it on your bucket list, but I don't necessarily regret that it happened to me.
Yeah. So I'm gonna back all the way up and talk about how it was for you growing up in your childhood. Were you in like a 2-parent household, or how was that for you?
Yep, I had. So my mum and dad were basically working class people, and I think the kind of the short story is that I wasn't exactly planned or wanted, and that led to, my dad kind of, I always had a relationship with my dad where I kind of felt like I was, a pain, like I basically calls their life a problem kind of thing. He worked up in London on the London buses, and he worked incredibly unsocial hours. So often, I would go most of the week without seeing much of him, really. Yeah. My mum, I think that caused a lot of tension with my parents, and they would argue and fight a lot, and that's not good for a youngster. I was put into like I mean, people go like to a daycare now, but I was put into like these like really extended ones where like you was dropped off at very early in the morning and picked up late at night kind of thing, and I don't have a lot of memories other than like it was just not a great environment, and yeah, so look, kind of feel like I'm rabbiting on a little bit here, but there was quite a lot of trauma. My mum would often say things to me that like no child should ever hear, and that led to me having, I guess, quite low self-esteem. You know, so yeah, it was wasn't the ideal upbringing. No.
Let me ask you something. Do you feel like the tension between your mom and dad was taken out a lot on you, like on behalf of your mom?
Yeah, and my dad. You know, like I know that my mum would often, you know, when my dad come home, you know, like I can now that I'm an adult, I can kind of imagine the situation. But you know, he's come back from a long day of, you know, I don't know if you know those old red, they call them the Route Master buses, right? They were heavy gear to be turning the wheel on those things. You know, not all the power steering and stuff like you got today. So he got home tired after a long, heavy day. You know, he'd have to commute for about an hour on the trains to get back to our house. And then my mum would basically spout off about how hard the day is, what a shit Alan Cox, you know, what a shit I had been, and things like that. And then he would believe her and, like, you know, take it out on me, you know. Yeah, I'm not saying I condone their behaviour. I can kind of see how it might have happened. Like I know that for my mum especially, having a child out of wedlock at that time had a lot of shame in the UK. So she was probably getting shame from her parents, her family, and sisters and brothers and things like that. So
Yeah.
no doubt she was going through an awful lot of stress, but it definitely kind of led. I don't know if taken out on me is the right phrase, but you know, it certainly led to behaviors and things towards me that like just were really, really unhealthy.
Yeah. Now, how long did this go on for?
It pretty much went on throughout my whole childhood, to be honest. I think that you know, even when I was at school, so when I was about 7, my brother was born, and he was, you know, he was planned, and it just always felt like, you know, he got the attention, you know, and even when I was kind of maturing as a young adult kind of thing, there was a lot of expectation on me to be more of an adult than I actually was. You know, like even if you're 16 or 18, you still haven't got the wiring to understand or behave in the ways that, you know, your parents sometimes expect you to. You know, so yeah, it was really just a hard time from them right up until I left home, and I was actually kind of pushed into leaving home. A lot of pressure on me to leave home. So I got married quite young. I mean, I don't regret that at all. Like I'm still with my wonderful wife after 30 odd years, and you know, we have even to this day we have a fantastic relationship. So I feel blessed there. But you know, leaving home, getting a mortgage, and all of those things at such an early age is like, looking back, I wasn't equipped for it really. So But even then, I remember that, you know, I was working hard and trying to support the wife and everything like that. And even when we had children, there was still, you know, the mum would still basically put demands on me and, you know, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? So I think that was probably a big part of why I migrated to New Zealand. I kind of just had enough and wanted to get away.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your marriage, and the fact that you guys have been together for so long. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know it's hard work, but
you get less time for murder, right?
yeah. So in that, well, how old were you when you officially got out on your own?
We bought our first house when probably at 21. You know, got married in first house when we was 21, so it's quite young.
Yeah, really young. Wow. And so let me ask you this: once you were with your wife and you transition into like a new environment, do you feel like you were like a lot of stuff that you dealt with from like childhood and stuff like that would come to the head, like the surface?
The way I put it is like this: is like, and sorry if this sounds a bit technical, but what I now see is that everyone, depending on their mental makeup, their background, and what have you, they have a certain amount of resilience, right? Like, say, on a 1 to 10, and if you have a good level of resilience, like let's just say you're a 7 or something like that, when stress hits you, you dip down, but you dip down to a level that you're still fairly strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not only does it not affect you as much, you also bounce back much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've had a life like I had, I think I probably had a resilience level which was barely above 3, and that was always there, residual, right? And then when anything hits you, and it may even be just going through a bit of a stressful time at work, you know, deadlines or whatever, those things that then dips you down to, say, a 2. And that's when you're in danger territory, right? Your brain isn't functioning properly anymore. And not only do those things affect you much harder, but it takes much longer for you to come back. So I think, kind of in answer to your question, whilst things got easier for me, you know, you're entering a stage of life where, you know, you're 100% your own. You know, you got to rely on yourself. You haven't got the backstop of your parents anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to still act like a grown up, even though you don't sometimes feel like, you know, you sometimes still feel like a child that needs love, care, and attention. And yeah, when those struggles come, and that it wasn't really until I, you know, basically reached adulthood that I started getting like fairly strong bouts of depression and things like that, you know. So that's what happened.
And you know what? Like when I was raised, with my childhood, I went through some abuse and neglect and stuff too. And it seems like you're fine for so long, you know, you kind of just like, you just kind of bury it like back in your subconscious, you know, as like a method of, like a wall of protection, you know, you just do away with those things. And like the depression for me came about after I had my own child, you know, because it was like, it took me back in a mental space of everything that I went through and everything that I never would want for him, you know. And sometimes the second visit is more like hurting. It's more hurtful than the first initial, you know, impact. So let me ask you something else. How did you meet your wife at that young of age?
Yeah, well, I met her. I basically was doing an apprenticeship, and ironically, that was another part of my problem backstory. I guess is that, just stepping back a little bit, when I was at school, I'm a creative person, right? And I just wanted to do woodwork, art, history, social science, and back in the day, I'm sure they do a similar thing now, but you were asked at a certain point, I think 2 years before your exams, to take your choices in terms of like what you like. You obviously have to do the basics like mathematics and English and what have you, but you choose whether, you know, what sciences you're going to do, what subjects you're going to do, and I chose all of these subjects, you know, like I wanted to do, because that was me. And I kind of got a proverbial slap round the head by my parents saying, look, don't be silly, that's going to be no good for a career. And again, you know, I'm sure that they were, you know, being working class parents, and they probably wanted the most from me. They wanted to see their son become a frigging doctor or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
They probably wanted me to have a life that's better than the life that they had. But that then led me to 2 years of struggle, which compounded my problems. I failed all of my exams. And as a result of that, I did another year of study so that I could get the basics. And then I had no idea what to do. And then my parents kind of arranged for me to go on an apprenticeship with Marconi Avionics, to get an apprenticeship in electronics, which again is completely the wrong side of the brain for me.
Yeah.
And this was, I can't actually remember if it was a 3 year, or I think it was a 3 year or 4 year thing. And it was basically similar to a degree, but instead of it being academically as high level as a degree, it wasn't quite as high, but you basically had all this work experience interweaved. And my darling wife, Sally, was one of the fellow apprentices with me. So I got to spend, you know, 3 or 4 years, and we worked. I think we probably knew each other for a couple of years before. I wouldn't say I had feelings for her, but what I'd noticed is that when I remember there was one time there was a Christmas party, and she was kissing this other guy, and I was just really, really not even jealous. Like it was kind of like I had these feelings of, look, that's my girl, you know. And it was like really shocked me. Yeah. And anyway, shortly after that, I made my move, and we've been together since.
Aw. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So
And
let me ask you this.
for any youngsters out there, I'll tell them the secret, right? So I did a slow dance with Sally, right? And when we're moving, I nibbled the top of her ear. and she said, like, that was the moment. She said, like, that was it. So yeah, young guys, nibble the ear.
That's a good one. So let me ask you this: when you two got together, Had you expressed like things about your childhood with her, and like how did she take it?
No,
You didn't.
no, not at all. Yeah, it basically just I suppose when I was just going through my struggles, depression and what have you, it just slowly starts coming out, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was she? How was she taken to that?
Um, the truth is, you know, Sally is a lovely, lovely, lovely person, but she does struggle with empathizing with people that are kind of sick. Like in a way, like I don't mean like if it's something, say, like with cancer or diabetes or something like that, absolutely, right? Like it's kind of normal. But I think again, because she didn't really have like no one is educated at that age about the mind, what depression is, and everything else. And so I think she had, especially having a dad who was a builder, you know, like just rough it, you know, just get on with it, you know.
Yeah.
I think she probably had this understanding of like, you know, where when I was having depression, like she would probably see it as kind of wallowing and, you know, just pick yourself up kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and that, yeah, I guess that makes you feel, yeah, unsupported and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, prior to my depression, like I had heard about depression, as we all do, but I didn't realize, you know, how serious it was until I was actually in it. Like, it had gotten bad, and it can get really bad, you know. And you don't realize the severity of it unless you
Mm.
experience. Like, it's another one of those things you don't know the magnitude of something until you go through it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, when you're in that like mind frame, you already feel alone, like, because it's so hard to even describe what you're feeling.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lifestyle. So,
Yeah.
and honestly,
And
like I didn't know how to really empathize. I'm sorry, with people prior to experiencing that, you know.
yeah.
So
And
it's
probably made and probably made the same. And um,
mm,
you know, you know what I later learned, and is that for people that are going through depression, um, there's a lot of physical things going on in the brain. You know, like
mm-hmm.
you know, just like, say, someone with diabetes, they're you know, they're not producing enough insulin, and that causes their, you know, their body to react a certain way. It's exactly the same in the brain. You know, your hippocampus has probably shrunken by 20%, 30%, right?
Uh-huh.
There's all these, and as a result, there's all these signals. You know, if you think of your brain as being like um, a computer program that's basically telling your body how to function, it's not working properly.
Yeah.
It's working on. It's not only dysfunctioning in the sense that, you know, it's taking two and two and making five and things like that, and it's
Yeah.
putting out all of the wrong um, you know, neurochemicals and everything else. It's not something you can just bring yourself out of.
Yeah.
It literally is a physical state. You know, it's
It
I think that's
is.
what, and I just so wish that I just so wish that things like this were, well, I wish that
I'm sorry.
matters of the mind, you know, and I'm talking about everything, if you think of everything to do with your mind, which is basically pivotal to not only your human functioning, but the life you have, the relationships you have, your performance in work, your ability to innovate, your ability to be creative, and all of those things. It's the number one thing that basically drives life and success in business and the economy and a country's success on a global stage. Yet, it could easily be more content for you to learn at school than mathematics or English or literature or whatever else. Yet it blows me away that you do not get that education, but instead the school will quite happily teach you about classical history and religion and whatever else, but the most important thing in life, you get no education whatsoever, just imagine if we'd had that,
the kids would come out so much better. Not to say that would solve all problems, but it would definitely help. Also, like stress management, critical thinking, different things like that. Stuff that we're really faced with on a day-to-day basis.
It's just huge. I won't digress, but like I think so the country Wales in the UK. I'm not sure if they're the only one, but for the last 2 or 3 years, they have been working on completely reconfiguring their school curriculum around the central pillar of well-being.
That's good.
And that was rolled out this year. And the reason that they've done that is not only because well-being is important, is they have recognized that is an investment in their country, and in 10 years' time, they're going to be an economic powerhouse because they're going to have all these youngsters that are performing way better than their counterparts elsewhere.
Absolutely, that's a really good investment. Probably one of the best. That's amazing. So. While going through that, I know you and I had talked about with the depression. Did you ever contemplate suicide at all?
I've actually attempted suicide a number of times. Very thankfully, I was unsuccessful, obviously. But yeah. So. The answer is yes. I'm not sure. Yeah, did you want to explore that? Or?
That's completely up to you. I mean, if you're comfortable with that,
yeah,
I won't.
Yep, okay. I'm happy to talk about it. I just didn't know where you wanted to go with that.
Okay, yeah. So with that, first of all, how many times have you attempted it?
I think it's 4 times.
Okay. And what would you say? Would you say the depression was the make or break factor in each situation, or was there like a circumstance that pushed you over the limit each time?
I can probably put that in really, really simple terms. First of all, there would have been. So first of all, you're already like sub 3 on my 1 to 10 scale, so you're already depressed. Something triggers you, maybe an argument, like a silly argument or something. You then turn to alcohol. Alcohol basically makes it 10 times worse. Your judgment goes out the window, and the next minute you've done something silly.
I'm glad that you're still here with us. Now let me ask you this. I'm really glad. So with your attempts, how did your family and friends react to that after you came back to?
Anger. Yeah, very, very,
angry
very,
with you.
very, very little empathy. Just like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like it kind of felt like to me like they felt like I was giving up on them. You know, it was kind of more
Mm-hmm.
focused on them than me, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Um, and at what age was all this taking place, or has it been like over the years?
It's been over the year. So basically, there's been, I guess, there's been some like real sort of fairly big crises that I was going through. Like, so I'll just go through them really, really quickly so you can kind of get an understanding.
Okay.
So, just when I was ready to migrate to New Zealand, I'd planned to come out here in '95. Been accepted, everything was going great, and then I had like quite a big accident at work. Quite a bad back injury. I was unable to walk. Instead of my company being supportive, they basically made me redundant, and that caused me
Mm-hmm.
to have develop a chronic pain condition. And that was basically the first episode that led to an attempt. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of got my life back on track, made it out to New Zealand. I went back to college for a year, managed to get a job at a really good company. At the time, I don't know if you remember, the whole web thing was just kicking off, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I basically went out. My wife got pregnant with our third child,
Mm-hmm.
and so, you know, you've got a new child on the way, and people said that I was mad at the time, but I thought now is the time. Things are going really great. I'm going to leave this really good, secure job of mine and start my own consultancy.
Okay.
And literally within months of starting, so my wife's not working, she's already got two kids at home, you know.
Yeah.
Within months of starting the consultancy, there was the .com crash, right?
Okay.
And so everyone stopped spending money on just the thing I was going out to, and so things were really, really hard for a few years there, and that was another struggle event.
Yeah.
Kind of got my life back together, and things were going okay, just starting to pick up track again. And then there was the global financial crisis, and again,
Mm-hmm.
like a drop down, and that was another struggle event. And yeah, I managed to bounce back from that, and then things were going quite well with a consultancy I had. About 12, 13 staff at the time. I just invested a lot of money into getting our own kind of offices with, you know, naming on the building and everything else. You know, we was a well recognized, you know, brand doing really, really great work in here in New Zealand, and some international work. We had some clients in the States, and this was at a time when you didn't really have like what they call cloud services now. You know, everything on the cloud. You know, we had
Mm-hmm.
this room with, you know, air conditioning to cool down all of the servers in there, which had all of our data and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then the earthquake struck, right? And
Mm.
you know, I I I was, you know, I'd basically just walked into a doorway. It was at lunchtime. I had just walked
Mm-hmm.
into a doorway when it happened, and the best thing I can say to describe what it was like is do you know when the World Trade Center come down and it was just completely white, right?
Yeah.
it was just like that. I couldn't see in front of me at all. And as I was walking out, I was just walking over these bricks, and basically the next day when I saw pictures where I had just gone into this room, went into this doorway, the bricks were about 2 foot deep, and a car that was just like opposite the door that I was at was basically flattened to half of its height. So I would definitely not be here. Definitely not be here.
Wow.
But also the office that I was in, basically it was trashed, and it was so badly damaged. Like we was on the 3rd floor, and it was so badly damaged that the safety people wouldn't even let you in. So not only did we have nowhere to work from, we had no equipment, right? So I spent about, and if you can imagine, just to put it in perspective, the reality is if you think of those like office buildings in the middle of town, over 85% of those were trashed, right, and were ultimately demolished. You know, if you look at a picture of Christchurch, like about a year or two later, once they'd done all the demolitions, it was like a big graveyard, really. The whole of the city centre had pretty much gone. And so everyone that had those offices, they then tried to find somewhere to work from. You know, like, so it took us a while, but we found like an apartment to work out of. But I guess the point is that at a time when, like, many people like me that were just in, say, normal employment situations, they would definitely have taken like weeks off to kind of recover from that event. But I had to basically jump into being a leader and finding, you know, looking after my team. And what basically happened over the ensuing 3 months is a lot of our contracts, because the economic climate had changed, obviously because of the earthquake, a lot of our contracts were either paused or cancelled, and we were just really, really struggling, and then that led to me having basically losing the business and having a major mental breakdown, and that was kind of like the lowest it got.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, how long ago was that?
10 years or so.
Okay. So let me ask you something else. Initially, like, okay, I got these questions. The wheels are just spinning for me. So
we might have to have volume 2.
Just maybe. So when you would make these attempts, would somebody come rushing in to save your life, or would you just like, how would that go? Who would be there to help you in that?
It was a range of situations. Yeah, one time, I think a couple of times someone alerted police. You know, they'd seen that I was doing something that I shouldn't be, or So there was I was always away from the house, away from the family, and someone observed me and called the police or something.
I'm so glad that you're still here. I really am. It was, and now I'm losing my thoughts. What was I gonna ask next? They were all coming at once. So like coming out of that, right? Because you said it's been like 10 years. Coming out of that, no, let me back up some. What would you say to someone that feels like they're in the same situation, or like, you know, having a mental breakdown where they just don't want to be here anymore? What would you reach out and say to that person?
There's a couple of things I would say. one of them would be, whenever you're feeling like that, please, 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 even if it's not the closest person to you, please, please, please go and speak to somebody. Even if it's a stranger, right? Even if it's a stranger in the street, that person will save you. Please do that rather than drinking alcohol, for a start.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If you at least, like, I know what the process, like, you'll be in a state of mind that says, look, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. It's I don't think many people are thinking, I want to die, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are thinking, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. It's too painful. I want the pain to go away. Right.
Yeah.
And when you reach that kind of, if you have the wherewithal to think, I'm just about to jump down the rabbit hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of jumping down the rabbit, if you can say to yourself, if I jump down this rabbit hole and I start drinking, then the outcomes won't be good, right? So first of all, please don't, at least talk to someone. Say, look, this is how I am. The second thing, and this probably kind of maybe helps to think about the potential consequences of jumping down the rabbit hole, right? I've learned a lot, over the last 10 years. I've not only studied, neuroscience, psychology, Buddhism, Taoism, all of these things. I've certainly become a lot more spiritual and, aware of things like consciousness and things like that. And being, I guess, forcefully trained as an engineer, there are things that I have quite an inquiring mind, and there are things that can't be explained in science, right? That lead you to a place where you think, we just have no idea what the rules of the universe are. We have no idea what comes next. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. It doesn't matter what your, religion, creed, or color is, right? It doesn't matter any of that. The simple reality is that we do not know what comes after we leave this earth and what the rules for that are, right? I mean, just if I may, to bring a little bit of humor to this, is that, it may sound strange, but it may be that the rules of the universe are that if you take your life, you'll come back as a pig or a worm or something like that, right? But if you get to the end of your life and you have made a contribution to society and lived a life with meaning and purpose, then something much better will happen for you, right? And the other thing is, however much you might want to lash out at, certain individuals, whether that be your wife, your mum, your dad, whoever, the thing that you don't realize is there are literally hundreds of people around you that will be devastated and forever impacted by you going away, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone really would want to put that onto, if they really thought about it carefully. So I know that's kind of a bit of a long description, but now that I know what I know, what I'd say is, look, think about those things, because by jumping down that rabbit hole, there could actually be some consequences that are far worse than what you can imagine.
What you have to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the final thing is as like people like me and you are testament to, is whatever you're going through at the time, you're just in some form of bad weather, right? Yep. And with all bad weather, it does pass. There's always sunshine up above. There's always stars and the moon up above, right? And and I think that's kind of the third leg to this kind of, shall I jump down the rabbit hole, is what potential life am I throwing away for myself? You may not even have 1% of the confidence or idea that you will make something of this world, right? But if you make the right choices, you will. I'm the son of a bus driver and a telephonist, right? And now I'm a founder of a mission enterprise that's helping hundreds of people or thousands of people around the world. So that's a better choice to make, I think.
Absolutely. And so you're taking me into what I was going to ask you. So after, transitioning into a better space, what was the first thing that you dove into? How did you, with you, well, I'll let you introduce, your project and stuff like that and what you have going on, because I definitely want you to tell everyone about this, and I'm going to tell everyone about it too. But how did you get started with that? Just shifting out of that mental state that you were in and into a more peaceful space, more productive space, ready to just, change the way that you were living.
So back at the time, I would basically describe myself as being in a pitch black tunnel that I had no idea which way was which, or even if there was a way out, right? And then for some reason there was this program came on TV, and although it's a little bit dated now, it's available for free on YouTube. It's a BBC program called The Truth About Depression, and that just watching that program, number one, told me that, hold on, this isn't, yes, what's going on is in my head, but it's not in my head in the sense that it's imaginary. This is real. This is, there's actually real stuff wrong with me. And the second thing that the program showed, it is how all of that stuff can recover at 100%, and I'm talking about depression here. I'm not talking about if you have, say, schizophrenia or something like that. So that program turned on the lights in the tunnel. I saw a chink of light. I saw that there was a way out, and that really led me on my journey of consuming as much knowledge as I could about mental health, depression. That got me reading books about, Buddhism and everything I possibly could, because whatever label you put on a book, they all have these common threads that you'll pick up on, and the more that you read, all of these pieces suddenly start falling into place. And that's when I went on my journey of. It's one of those things that once you start making like sense of your mind, it's like it's almost like a fitness bug where you just don't want to let go. And and when I kind of got myself, just to use the analogy of like mental well-being on a 1 to 10, the reality is most people are around the 5.5. It's not great. Once I'd got myself to a 5.5, back to like the normal range, I was not only not, in good mental health. And by the way, good mental health just means that you're above a 3, right? That's all it means.
Yeah. Wow.
Once I'd got myself into like a good sense of mental health, I also had these new insights and knowledge that made everything different, and I just carried, and really the more I learned, the more I put into practice, the more it impacted my life in terms of, it made my relationships better, my productivity skyrocketed, I had more energy, I had more optimism and confidence. I just really want everyone to have that, and that's why I founded EverYellow, the company I'm working for now.
Yes. And I was just going to say, so tell us about the EverYellow, please.
Yeah. So we wanted to, when I use the word we, it's just me in the company, but I have a number of like freelancer friends that they're my family and my workforce, right? So I always use we.
Aww.
And to kind of put it into context, first of all, I'd already discovered that most of the mental well-being tools that are out there, they don't work. There's plenty of research studies that have looked at all of these meditation apps and everything and compared them to like a control group of people that don't use these apps, and there is no difference. So there's all these hundreds of there's probably more than 1 billion people that are struggling in the world to some degree, even if it's just stress or burnout, and they're not finding these tools useful, right? And I was actually kind of astonished but not surprised to learn that over 96% of these apps are deleted within 14 days. And when I looked at, well, why is that? It's things like people find them mundane. They're just not something they want to spend time with. They find them too demanding. Like even say meditation. For many people, in fact, over 70% of people would not do meditation because they just find it weird, or they can't find the time or space to do it. So there was all of these reasons why people didn't get help from these apps. So we wanted to create an app that basically was absolutely effortless. It had some like real science behind it. So yeah, we created EverYellow, and the way it basically works, it harnesses a process called mental conditioning. And mental conditioning happens to us all the way through our life, right? Like, it happens mostly in a bad way, like the reason we get depressed is because we're conditioned by our parents and the environment around us that we're not worthy. The world is a bad place, or whatever those things are, right? So we're basically using that same process in a positive way. So all you do with EverYellow is when you download the app, you go through some questions so that we learn about you. So we have very deep personalization. Everyone is different, right?
Okay.
So just as an example, you might have one person that has real trouble staying in the present moment, and they're ruminating on the past or worrying about the future all the time. But they have really good positive relationships around them, right? You might have somebody else that's the exact opposite of that, right? So they need different content, right? And we have like 10 different pillars of like your mental well-being. And so once we have your kind of shape, if you like, your profile, it's so easy. You just open the app, press let's go. You don't have to think, oh, what session do I use? You press let's go, and you listen to these wonderful experiences which basically blend. We have all these different narrators that speak this personalized content to you over a backdrop of music and sound. You can choose the music to your own taste. And the other thing that is that people really appreciate about the app is that you can turn the voice right down, so you're mainly listening to the music, and the voices are barely audible. But even though the voices are barely audible, the messaging is still getting through. So that means that you can use EverYellow while you're doing other things, like while you're cooking or while you're working or while you're studying. So it's not another thing to do, So we tell people to basically use a technique called habit stacking, and that's where to remember to use EverYellow, you just tie it to something that you already do. So listen to EverYellow when you're driving home from work, or when you're commuting to work, or when you're eating breakfast, so that thing is the trigger. So I like that. It's helping thousands of people, and we've tested it with an external research lab, and it definitely works really well. Really? So and it's free. So it's not, when I say it's free, it's not, we do have a premium version as well, because we do need to pay staff and things like that. But what I mean by the free version is that it's always free. It's not a free trial. As a social enterprise, one of our kind of key things is that money should never be a barrier to well-being. So if you don't have the money to pay for the app, then it's there for you, and it's always there for you. If you do have money to pay for the app, it will be greatly appreciated if you can support us.
And that's great. And I'm gonna repeat this data point that you gave me the other day, when you said 78% of people who use this app, EverYellow, every day for 1 week show signs of getting better. So it definitely works, and I'm downloading it right now so I can start it. And I'm gonna definitely try it out, because like, mental health is a process, and it's a lifestyle. So it's not something that we just start and then we get better and then we stop, so I'm definitely going to give this a try. And I appreciate the work that you're doing in this. It's definitely well thought out. And I love the idea, the same, struggles and stuff that you face, like you're turning around and helping people with those same areas.
Yeah.
And that's appreciated.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. And even if you give it a try and you think, I don't really like the voices or something like that, just turn the voices down. Right.
Okay. That's amazing. I like that.
I've had, honestly, I've had so many people that have come to me and they've told me their story about how, a certain situation would happen and they would usually get stressed or anxious or something, and now it's not happening anymore. And I say, oh, that's really, really great, thank you. And they go, no, that's not the bit I wanted to tell you about. I said, oh, what is it? I said, well, I've never listened to EverYellow with the voice turned up, and yet all the messages come back to me when I needed them,
Wow.
That's
amazing.
And that's the thing they say, is that the messages come back in their own voice. That's quite incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And you know what? I actually work with, I teach some cognitive behavioral therapy. And so this is something that I'm like, you guys download the EverYellow app right now and do this while you're not with me. That's amazing. And one last question before we close out. So if someone wants to work with you outside of this, how can we find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Just go on LinkedIn and search Alan Cox EverYellow, and more than happy to talk to anybody.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much. I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough for your time and just for sharing your story and everything that you did here today with us. Thanks for everyone.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm sorry.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. You know what? And you're welcome anytime. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. Also, please don't forget to go over to the T-shirt and hoodie store and support there at www.greatergrowthllc.com. Until next time.